when a mod project goes right. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've all had that great idea to modify one of our guitars, but it doesn't always turn out the way you're expecting. But check out this interesting Les Paul, with its open cover pickups, 4 slash marks by the tailpiece, 2 by the toggle switch, and a little peeking of something on the side. That's right, it looks like somebody took a router and actually channeled into the edge of the instrument, and then as of exposing the core of the earth, it's a different color. And the same thing is true on the side that you're going to see while you're playing. Not too much changed on the back. But then we have this weird modification of the Gibson headstock with an I Love Mom tattoo Gibson logo. And what's with our fretboard not having any inlays, except at the 5th fret? What is that? Is it brass knuckles? Yeah, we had to break the illusion. This was actually a real Gibson model. Known as the Gibson Les Paul Menace, it actually had the stock routs on the side and below the tailpiece, except it was all a flat black color. It still did have the smoky coils though. And that's right, the fretboard is stock. I believe these also have gold colored fret wire too, and they are indeed brass knuckles. It was an edgy time for Gibson, the mid-2000s. And yeah, that logo was not modified, that's how they left the factory. There was also an SG version of this guitar made, however, it's not as cool. They just got a couple of things taken out of their pick guard, no body routes. But still had all the other fun stuff going on. These are relatively inexpensive. They used to be as cheap as $800. Nowadays, people like to ask $1,500, do they get it? You know, it just kind of depends. But they used to be cheap, so some people would pick them up on clearance and refinish them into cool projects like these. It's definitely an eclectic taste, kind of like the Zoot suits, but I love the way that this one was modified. And on top of that, look at the case they gave it. It complements their new colors, and it's just a great Gen 2 chainsaw case that has considerable value even on its own. Let's just say, I'm not surprised this one sold fast at $1,600. If you want to see another one of these, check out somebody that did a green burst finish in this episode. And if you've personally modified your Menace to make it look anew, please let me know. But speaking of weird new refinishes, here's a mid-60s Gibson SG Special listed as Cosmic Refin. I mean, if it's truly that and only like $1,200, how bad can it be? Well, first things first, our pickguard is missing. Somebody's added like a new kind of angel wing one versus the bat wing. We've got some sort of a mystery plate here, which likely means it was routed for a Kaler at some point in time. They upgraded it to an intonatable pigtail wrap tail, and since it's a special, it likely originally would have started life as P90s, so it's been upgraded to humbuckers, and then we have this kind of interesting celestial poly finish to it. You can tell they lost a lot of the contours of the body when they sanded it down, or maybe that was intentional to make it look more globular. Certainly doesn't look like the highest quality refinish, but you know, it's hard to tell, judging by photos alone. When you get to the back, it almost looks more like a jawbreaker. But from this photo angle, everything looks crisp and clear. This one, it looks hazy. And here's a third angle where it looks even more different. Here's another one of the face. Maybe it's a pearlescent paint that causes that. But then check out the neck. It's like blue with some stripes. Okay. And then, oh, headstock. They made it blue too. I kind of like it. At least they masked off the logo enough to make it still look legit. But here we go, more evidence of some sort of a lock nut system. So that supports the theory that this is hiding a Kaler route. So how do we date a guitar that's completely non-original? You can take the nut width, that'll tell you if it's pre or post 1965. So he's saying it's the skinny one. He's upfront and honest in the whole bad pour fill job. He is disclosing the Kaler route, and he talks about how the heel looks. That's pretty much the best you can do, but you gotta remember, everything else has been rounded over. I mean, so much could have been changed. It could be a new neck on a completely new body. You don't know what other kind of breaks, cracks, or repairs are in here, or if it's even vintage, because it could just be somebody taking a donor headstock and putting it on there, or at least the headstock veneer. Even if it ended up being, you know, a 2000s SG Special that somebody did some vintage mods to. At this price, I don't think you'd be too hard-pressed. But speaking of refins, check out this ES295 redone in emerald green. ES295s, they look like this. They're gold, they're beautiful. We've reviewed the Scotty limited edition on the show. And a long time ago, I had an old beat up one that just had a terrible headstock repair, but it's one of the finest instruments I've ever played. Now the vintage originals get really expensive, but occasionally a player's grade model that's been refinished or has like so many repairs and stuff will show up, like maybe with non-original parts that make it a little bit more affordable, or if you're really lucky, you can find a husk. So whenever I see one with a really realistic price tag. It just reminds me of that old one and makes me want to purchase it. But it looks like, once again, the refin quality on this one might be subject. And it appears to have been refretted, got non-original pickups. You just can barely make out your original serial number, but hey, it's there. And you've got some cracks and more cracks. But it looks pretty good from the top. But I really appreciate the fact that whoever did the finish work, at least matched it with a pick guard. Because normally the flowers aren't that green color. Perfect for a rockabilly tribute band. This one was listed for $6,000 and is currently ended. But here's the other end of the spectrum, a beautiful custom color ebony 53 ES295. As we were just saying, these are usually gold guitars, so finding one that's custom ordered in black and in relatively good condition, all things considered, and originality, I thought this was quite the special piece that Emerald City were able to pull up. Although that board looks awfully dry. But this one's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You're gonna have to pay about double for one of those. But hey, if ES295s are out of your budget, try an ES175. Very similar guitars, they just have slightly different appointments. But here's one that somebody messed around with a little bit and made it look like an ES295. I saved this one in my watch list because that is an incredible top. Normally these are associated with gold top finishes, and then the ES175s are mainly like sunburst, and you don't typically find them super flamey, but this one was gorgeous. Somebody added a spacer to that neck pickup as well. Once again, that pick guard. Even the edges, ridiculously flamed all around the entire guitar. And then you flip over to the back, you're greeted with pretty much more of the same. But our serial number on this one dates it to 2007, the 10th day of the year. You've got that mahogany neck, and it's got a really luscious green case with an alligator skin exterior. And wow, I don't think I've ran into one of those. That is a factory option. This is one that showed up about 9 months ago for $4,000. Probably should have picked that thing up for a review. That was pretty sweet. But now we need to get a little bit weird tonight. So here's a Les Paul Melody Maker. So the first thing that's going to stand out to you is the color. Usually they look like this. They've got some sort of a sunburst. This one has been stripped back and somebody's heavily modified our pick guard and added some humbuckers to it. The next thing you might notice is, hey, that neck looks a little bit short. There is such a thing as a 3/4 size Melody Maker. However, now you need to count your strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a thing that also existed. It's called a tenor guitar. However, I have not personally seen a tenor Melody Maker. But if you go to the back side of the headstock, you can see somebody has done a little bit of refinishing work back here, but they blocked off the original serial number. But you can see the imprint of the original tuners as well as the tuner holes. So somebody has plugged them on this guitar that was probably cheap at one point in time to convert it into a tenor. So imagine that, a 3/4 size tenor guitar. What a niche item. And it was listed for a pretty proud $2,000 price. I'd say the biggest question is, what kind of pickups do we have in here? If they're nice and vintage, maybe that price makes sense. All they said is 2 Gibson humbuckers. But here's a unique one you don't see every day. This is the Les Paul Jr. DC Pro. We do have a proper review of one. I still have it in my collection. But when I first saw this one, I got really excited because all of these came stock with a really terrible KBX Steinberger tremolo unit that does not stand the test of time. So this is like a dream come true to find one in stop bar tailpiece format. However, my hopes and dreams were dashed when it just turned out somebody had filled in the route and refinished it. It wasn't like a factory custom order or something, or a small run that didn't have the trem system. But I thought it was really cool to see one in this particular configuration. So if you need more proof of a refinish, yeah, you can see a dimple of somebody putting a strap button back there and then filling it in. It's currently listed as ended at $1,500. But here's one where somebody took the opposite approach. It's another 65 SG special, so not too unlike what we were looking at earlier this episode. Humbuckers again, weird modified pick guard, and then this looks like a Wonder Bar system. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I've actually ran into one of those. It almost appears to be top mounted though, which would be good because it's a lot easier to take off if that's what you're wanting to do. But you've got a couple of sets of roller saddles. I would assume maybe a bar goes into there. You can see where the original wrap tail studs were filled. We've got some sort of a DiMarzio pickup there. Black strap buttons, missing the back plate. Headstock's looking nice though. Tuners have been swapped. Ooh, cool, Schaller branded ones. So So that tells you somebody did those, at least in the 70s. That looks like a refret to me was somebody who has heavily played this. So if you're looking for a player, yeah, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that. Looks like maybe a heel crack. And that neck pickup ended up being a Seymour Duncan 59. Unfortunately, the listing doesn't tell us if that trem system has any type of brand name on it, and it did not come with a case, but again, $1,500, that's something you just buy and you enjoy for what it is. You don't try to further restore it, you just have some fun. And speaking of having fun, here was a $2,500 1981 Les Paul Custom, relatively cheap by 2024 standards. So first up, we've got some sort of a natural finish. Is it original or redone? We can't exactly say for sure right now because a 1981 could have came in a natural finish. We can tell it's got the 3-piece top, so things are lining up. So far, we can tell somebody's replaced the bridge for kind of like an ABR1 knockoff, but it appears to be sitting on original posts, so you could probably swap that back if you really wanted to. Tailpiece could still be original, knobs definitely replaced. Got a black pickup ring with a cream one, obviously replaced screws there. So the odds of these pickups being original to the guitar, very low. However, it almost looks like somebody could have just painted that one because it's starting to wear away, and I think I just barely see some gold popping through. But now swapping over to the back, we've got a couple of replaced and missing screws. You can start to tell that this was likely refinished because you got like a little bit of cherry right here. So that would be my guess at this point in time. And when we get to our serial number, yeah, that one's easy. Still got the red in the serial, but they didn't want to sand even further and then accidentally make it go away. So it does indeed date to 1981. It's before they transitioned out of the maple necks. And it still has the... What is going on here? We've just got a smiley face back here, but it's not the usual smiley face crack. It's just an interesting choice to leave the finish alone in that area. Maybe they were scared to damage the volute or sand it away. At some point in time, Grovers were tried out on this headstock, but it's back to the original Gibson Schaller-made M6 style tuners. But now that I'm looking in this area again, how did they get the stain out of Made in USA, but not the serial? They're probably too scared to accidentally erase that, but this, it's not as big of a deal. Headstock, it's got some dings, chips, and the binding. Ooh, somebody put a lock nut on it. So now you have to go back here and make sure you're not missing a filled-in Kaler route. This little bit right here was starting to scare me because that's usually what it looks like. As a route here, it goes up and then it's a little bit smaller right there because Kalers utilize the original bridge posts as well as the tailpiece studs, but I don't think it has that. I think that's just one of those times where somebody wanted to try a lock nut. Oh, and not only is the binding damaged, it's just missing at a certain part. Be careful buying a guitar with missing sections of binding, because if you ever have to sell that, that is going to be a serious detractor from somebody wanting to buy it. I've seen some really great deals on guitars that have cracked binding like that. Now, can it be fixed? Yes, but to match it perfectly, it's going to be tricky. Most likely, you're just going to have to rebind the whole thing and then evenly overspray it, and then you're messing with the finish on the headstock, which will be even more red flags to somebody who's buying it if they can't see through to the finish. You're better off just assessing, do you like it as is, or are you okay with it not perfectly matching? But as far as our case, it's your standard one. The red interior is correct for late 70s and into the 80s. However, usually in the 80s, it'll be the Gen 3 chainsaws, but that does not mean these did not still exist. It was just your standard case. So error correct for sure. All things considered, I think that was an alright price for somebody. You could probably strip this down even better, refinish it, make it actually look pretty good because, hey, if we got to do all the other finish work, you can fix that headstock. That missing binding portion's not a big deal, or any of this other stuff. So if you happen to have bought any of these projects and you did something further to them, feel free to send me an email. But otherwise, our fun has come to an end for today, my friends. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.